Good morning, everybody. We are meeting in Chennai on a warm day, not a hot day, because perhaps in Chennai every day is warm or hot. There is nothing like any day, anything less than that. And I am also feeling very happy to see so many faces from different parts of the country all come together to express our concerns, either through our words or mere presence, about the situation, especially political situation presently. Please don't think that I am going to make a very long speech as such. For one thing, I am not getting into the details. The various incidents you see which have been taking place all over the country for quite some time, because I am sure all of you have been in touch, have kept yourselves abreast of all those things. What I propose to do is merely to give you an idea of my take on those things. How I look at it, how I perceive those things, and the incidents as such, and also the mindset of the people, the ideology of the people who are perpetrating all these violations on the fellow Indians. Professor Marx was making a mention of some of the laws, the attacks on human rights activists, on environmentalists, and several other such people, you see, who have been talking or who have been actively involved in agitations against the establishment. I call it the establishment. I am not mentioning any one particular political party, because all of us know that these are all not new things. It is not as though these environmentalists and the political activists, human rights activists, have been the targets of the attacks only for the last 5 or 6 years, not just since 2014. Even earlier, when the other party, the Congress party, for example, was in power, we were witness to several such incidents. And when almost all these human rights organizations, NCHRO, or I, for instance, represent People's Democratic Forum in Karnataka, from Bangalore, and I have my colleague, a senior human rights activist, Professor Baba here, and the other gentleman who is here from Bangalore is Comrade Balan, who incidentally and interestingly is handling the case of Gauri Lankesh. I don't have to elaborate on that. You know what the case of Gauri Lankesh relates to. So when we started all these activities as in the area of human rights, there were other political parties, not the BJP as such. So what I mean to say is that these attacks on these people who have been talking against the establishments, it has been part and parcel of the agenda of the rulers. Whoever the rulers are, the Congress, INC, or the BJP, or any other thing, JDS, or whatever it is. And since independence, we know, I'm sorry, normally I don't use that word independence at all. I use the word transfer of power. Because I believe what we had in 1947 was not independence, it was just transfer of power. Transfer of power from one set of people, whom we call imperialists, to another set of people. They are the local power mongers. So since then, since 1947, we have been experiencing, rather the country has been experiencing what we can call a centrist politics. And centrist politics is with a tinge of socialism here and there. And that was also possible only because of the presence of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in the Constituent Assembly. Only because he was the one, you see, very much involved in the making of the Constitution. And I very strongly believe, if only Dr. Ambedkar had not been part of the whole exercise, the preamble as we have today, where you have this talk of justice, economic, social and political, that certainly would not have been there. What with all those various other people, you see, who represented mainly the Brahminical forces here in this country. It was to the credit of Dr. Ambedkar that it was possible for him, you see, to withstand all these pressures from those Brahminical and the feudal forces and introduce at least some of the provisions which are totally for people. And we know that even Dr. Ambedkar was helpless in certain respects, especially, in the case of that Hindu Code Bill and all that, and ultimately he had to resign. He had to resign from the ministry. That is one part of the story of the so-called glorious history of India. And since then, there are different political parties, different individuals have been ruling over us, and we are where we are, and we are what we are. But even as the centrist politics has been having its sway over the people, over the minds of the people, we know very well, and we can say for certain, that the rulers, the so-called rulers, they did nothing in order to change the very social structure which was to be removed, or which was to be changed according to the Constitution. Because when you talk of justice, social, political and economic, that means to say then that you don't have that justice in this country. You don't have social justice, you don't have political justice, you don't have economic justice. The only political justice you have is that one man, one vote, or one woman, one vote. And I think that is nothing. Because if that vote, you see, that you go there and cast, or that button, by pressing that button there, if it does not at all, you see, in the real sense of the term, reflect your aspirations, well, in practice, even that power you have, even that power to vote, it means nothing. And this economic justice and the social justice, as they were talked about, only because Dr. Ambedkar and a few others also knew very well that in this country there was no economic justice, there was no social justice. What have these people during all these 70 and odd years done to really bring justice to the people, to the downtrodden, to the underprivileged, to the unprivileged? Even today we know very well that just 1% of the population of this country, they own something like 50 or 51% of the total wealth of the country. What does it mean? Where is the economic justice? Then we talk of social justice. And you know very well all about all those attacks on the Dalits, on minorities, on the attacks on masjids, on churches. Where is this social justice? So, I hold the whole establishment, either represented by the Congress party and certainly by BJP, wholly responsible for the status quo in this country. Though we say we live in the 21st century, many of our people, many of our leaders, not just common people, many of our leaders live in the 16th and 17th century. That's why one can even very easily say that there are two Indias. One, very modern India, living in the 21st century, modern in the sense we use all the new gadgets. We have your laptops, you have your telephones, etc., etc., etc. But then, what is your mindset? The mindset is the old one. It takes you back to the 16th. It takes you back to the 17th or 18th century. So even this change in the lifestyle, for example, unfortunately, has not at all effected any change in your mindset, in your thinking. That is because of the force, that is because of the power, the influence that tradition has. The constitution makers, wanted to break the tradition. But unfortunately, that tradition has remained totally unbroken. But when I say totally unbroken, maybe I'm a bit exaggerating. Because there are a few corners here and there, like, for example, this, and several other groups in this country, where you find many people, thousands and thousands of them, trying to break away from that tradition. But those people who want the country to stick to the tradition, they are in power and they are also in a majority. So that is the situation, you see, that we find existing here since 1947, since that transfer of power, which was not transferred to the people of this country. It was only transferred to some people of the country, some individuals of the country. And as years have gone on, we find that power now belongs only to those who have money. Because we know very well that if you don't have money, enough of money, more than that, you cannot even take part successfully in this electoral process. One example, all of you know Iram Sharmila, who fasted for more than 14 or 15 years, mainly for the repeal of that ASPA. What happened? Ultimately, she contested, and you know how many votes she got. She got, I think, less than 100 votes. So, who is responsible for that? How is it that people there in Assam, in our own state, how is it that those people did not understand the value, the importance of the fight, you see, that she went on with for so long a time? That is to say, when these people, you see, they were not ready to have her as their representative, I don't blame the people. I blame the system. I blame the system which is completely under the control of the powers that be. She was not allowed. She was not allowed to win. The common people, for example, you see, they were not allowed to vote for her. In the sense, not as though they were prevented physically from that. But you see, the mindset of the common people, it was made to think in such a manner that they would not think of electing her, having her as their representative. That is just one example. In different parts of the country, we know there are several such cases. For example, in Bengaluru itself, we have some cases where people who have been actively engaged in many of these social causes, they have miserably lost the elections, even their deposits. Only here and there some, exceptions might be there. For example, of Jignesh Mewani in Gujarat. But even he could win only because he at least indirectly got the support of the Congress party. And we also have another example of Kanhaiya Kumar, who in the recent elections, he lost. Really, you see, that was a shock, not just a surprise. And who is it that won against him? A mud-headed, traditional, conservative communalist. That is, that Giriraj Singh. So, when we have such a situation here, where do we go? What do we do? The only thing that we have to do there is to try to understand the minds and the forces behind all these happenings and to see whatever we can do. If those things that we do are, to what extent those things are going to be effective. So, this centrist politics, you see, that has been there in practice for so long a time, gradually, you see, it gave way to the rightist politics. Even as all these centrist politics was going on, it is not as though, especially the Hindu right, was silent. The Hindu right started operating in 1925 itself in the form of RSS. I don't have to go into all the details. And then, there was the emergency in 1975, and very strangely, that emergency or all those various other laws which we normally call draconian laws, all of them are there passed in the name of the Constitution itself. Because we know, even emergency was declared in the name of the Constitution, and your TADA, your POTA, your UAPA, AFSPA and all these things, they are also there, again you see, with some sort of a support from the Constitution itself. That means to say, those rulers who are supposed to uphold not just some instances, rather some provisions of the Constitution, but the spirit of the Constitution, they have totally forgotten the spirit of the Constitution. They are only out to make the best use for themselves, best use of some provisions which gave them extreme powers, unquestionable powers. So it is in the name of the Constitution that emergency was declared, and you know very well what happened later, and it is after that that the old Janasingh, it took a new birth, and that was Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, and after that, from year to year, from decade to decade, they are so patient. They have been very patiently waiting so long. Those people who are just two in the parliament at a time, now you know how many there are, more than 300. So the one thing you see that you have to appreciate about them is their perseverance, their patience. And now, today, it is that particular group, in all its cruelty, with all its one-sidedness, with all its anti-people attitudes, and with all its anti-national attitudes, it is in power. And strangely, those people whom we consider to be anti-national, they call us anti-national. Because now, there was a time, you see, when, for instance, there was one person called D.K. Barua. He said, Indira is India, and Indira is India. People of my generation, you know, we knew it. But today, it is something more than that. Nobody is saying Modi is India or India is Modi. They say, if you criticize Modi, you are anti-national. At least then you see, when you criticized Indira, you are not called anti-national. You are considered to be only anti-Indira. But now, the situation is, you are considered to be anti-national if you criticize Modi. That means to say, Modi is equated with India. If you criticize BJP, you are anti-national. You are an urban Naxal. And I think very recently, you know, there is the new name which has been added to the list of urban Naxals. That is Aruna Rai. Till then, you see, there were only a few people, and all of them are in jail. And Processhi Baba has been there for longer than these people. And I should also mention, I'm very happy to hear from my friend Gopal Menon here that he has made a film on Professor Sai Baba, who has been languishing in jail for more than a year, and the other people also are there, Varvar Rao and Sudha Bharadwaj, to name only 2 or 3. So what does it show here? You are called an urban Naxal, and recently one urban Naxal died, and that urban Naxal was Girish Karnad, the intellectual from Karnataka. He was bold enough to say, I am urban Naxal, me too. He had a placard in front of him and said, yes, if you call all these people urban Naxals, I am also an urban Naxal. Put me behind bars. So there are such voices also, very strong voices. And the powers here, you see, that what they are trying to do is to put down these voices. And why are these voices there? These are merely not their voices. If Girish Karnad says, I am an urban Naxal, it is not merely his own voice that you hear. That is the voice of millions and millions of people in this country who are suffering. If we as human rights activists, we oppose the establishment, it is not as though we oppose them individually. We oppose them as a group, as a collective. as a collective of individuals who see what is right and what is wrong. But the BJP, the RSS and those, especially the Sangha Parivar, they have their own understanding of what is right and wrong. And so whoever goes against it, he is wrong. And all of you know very well what M.S. Golwalkar long ago said. This country has three very dangerous enemies. They are, Muslims, and then communists and atheists. So we don't know where we stand. I don't know whether I can call myself a communist, but I certainly can say I am an atheist. And then, the Muslims. They are all the, enemies. And for him, all these people can live here only as second-class citizens. If they want to live here, live as second-class citizens. Otherwise, go to Pakistan. That is the new language, you see, that these people have picked up. The followers of Golwalkar. And you also find that there is a sort of a division of labor. Normally in economics, you talk of division of labor. But here in the government, there is a division of labor. One set of people, they talk of development. And what sort of development is it? It is totally capitalist development, which is out to help only Adanis, Ambanis and the rest of them, and represented by the Modi and others. And there is the other set of people, the Sakshis, the Sadhvis, and various other people, the yogis, who talk purely in terms of religious extremism. And only now and then, merely for public consumption, you find the great leader, Modi, saying something against these people. You should not do all these things. And once you know very well, why do you kill all those Dalits? Kill me. You remember all that political drama that he indulged in. And we know very well that that is only for public consumption. And these people who talk of these things, they have the permission. That is, they have the sanction, not just permission. They have the sanction of the powers. And the political situation now has gone down to such a low that you know what is happening in my state, in Karnataka. It is not as though the government in Karnataka at the moment, the coalition government is pure and good and all that. The Congress JDS coalition government, it is worthless, so to say the least. And you know very well what these people have done in Goa, what they are out to do in Bengal and several others. Not as though these governments are very pro people and all that. But one thing is that added to these anti-people policies of these governments, the new government at the center, it has added another angle to it, and that is the communal angle. And it is this communal angle which is the greatest danger to this country. There has been corruption here in this country since 1947, under the Congress rule, under various other rules. And this corruption in a way continues, in spite of the fact that this man goes on saying, na khaunga, na khane dunga, and all these things. That corruption continues. Pro-capitalist economic policies, they continue. Neoliberalism, it continues very strongly. And to that, you see, the new angle is blatant communalism. I believe many of you have heard of Aziz Ahmad, a Marxist critic. He has said the communalism of BJP is programmatic and the communalism of the Congress is pragmatic. There is the Congress people also indulge in communalism pragmatically, if it is necessary. Otherwise, okay, they are not that communal. But the communalism of BJP is program. It is their program to be communal, to make people communal. And only so, you know, that many young minds, very unfortunately, now they go on, doing that Modi bhajan and all. Wherever you find these young people, you find them shouting, Modi, Modi, such a nauseating slogan mongering. And that is to say that the establishment there now, it has penetrated into the minds of the young. And it is our responsibility to cleanse the minds, the young minds, and to enable them to see what is healthy and how do we do it. So that is the moot point. Because all of us know the problems. And we have to find the solutions. And where do you start finding the solutions? And finding the solutions, that only means say, one thing that we have to do is, we should never be ready to be part of the establishment. That means to say that we should always be ready to see the truth behind what the establishment is saying and what the establishment is doing. And then we should also be ready always to remain away from communalism of all sorts. It may be Hindu communalism, it may be Muslim communalism, Christian communalism, or whatever it is, and mainly fundamentalism. Because fundamentalism of any type is dangerous to not just the society or the country, to the mind. Because if you are a communalist in the name of Islam, in the name of Hinduism, in the name of Christianity, in the name of Zoroastrianism, or whatever it is, it spoils, makes you a sick man. It makes you a sick woman. You cannot think beyond a particular, framework. And in order to be a real human being, we have to develop ourselves into broad thinking minds, not just bodies. In the body of any individual, what is important is the mind, because it is the mind, you see, which decides how we talk, how we behave, how we live with others. So the first danger that we have to be away from is this communal mindset. And then we should also be in a position to talk to all these young minds wherever possible. At least that's what we have been doing in Karnataka. For example, we have an organization called Janashakti. And in Janashakti, for instance, we have hundreds and hundreds of youngsters, young boys and girls, almost throughout the state, not in every district, but in many districts, the different units. And we are training them, not as though, you see, we are putting them into concentration camps and all that. We are only telling them what is rational and what is irrational, what is good and what is bad for the individual, for the society, for the country. And we also have been trying to revive, for example, the paper. Gauri Lankesh had that paper. She was the journalist. And only for being a journalist and for talking against the establishment, she was killed. And before her, there were others who were killed. Professor Kalburgi, a noted scholar, Kannada scholar, and Davolkar and Pansare. All these people were killed because they dared to talk against the establishment. The newspaper that she was bringing out, a weekly, that was stopped. But again, a year ago, we revived it in a new form. Then it was Gauri Lankesh Patrike. Now it is Nyaya Patha, the path of justice. That's the name we have given to this paper, with which I am also associated, and many of our friends are associated with that. So we have been trying to do these things, and what we try to tell them, not preach. We are not preaching them. We are telling the young minds, this is the way, these are the wrong things, and these are the right things. From our own point of view, it is not just they are right because we think so. We think they are right because they are right. Right? You see, those people, they think what they say is right because they are saying it. But we say something is right because it is right, not because we are saying it. So that is the difference, you see, that we have to make between what they say and how they perceive, and what we perceive and what we say. So as human rights activists, you see, I have not talked about many of these human rights violations, mainly because, they are there. There are many Unnavs and Pehlu Khans, all these things have happened. Very unfortunately, you see, during our lifetime. And the establishment doing almost nothing, except shedding crocodile tears now and then. And we have to get out of this mire, and the only way in which we get out of this is to talk about the establishment most strongly, against not merely BJP, as I said, but also against all this injustice that has been done to this country by the other political parties also. And our leftist parties, less said the better. And Yogendra, in one of his recent articles, has said, the left is dead, long live the left. There is a need to have the left, but the left is dead. That is, the leftist parties are dead. They are not dead, they have killed themselves. It is a harakiri. They have committed suicide. For their own, anyway, it is their affair, it is their mistakes. And so we have to have a new leftist way of thinking. Not necessarily communist and all that. Because for that matter, Gandhi also was called a leftist. Obama was called a leftist in America recently. So whoever talks against the establishment is a leftist these days. So let us stand firm against these evil designs of the establishment, which is out to occupy not merely the country physically, but the minds of the people. So now we have to reclaim a position in the minds of the young people. Thank you.